talked about change management in general. We've got 3 phases. We talked about project management. We narrowed it down to 4 phases. We talked about BA, and it was really confusing because we have a few more phases, right? But we kind of see how it all fits together. Now see how business intelligence fits to that. And this is where I need a lot of support from an audience, because although I've had some experience in business intelligence, it's fairly new to what I've experienced. And so I'm starting to get more into the data mining than anything. So let's see if we can work through this together. In my mind, when I hear people talk about business intelligence, they're talking about 2 different life cycles. Sometimes they're focusing on the first one, that's designing and implementing a BI system. That's not really the purpose of anything you do. The purpose of what you do is to use that system. Okay? So then the second part is using a BI system to help you make decisions. So the whole purpose of BI is not to implement the system. It'd be like the whole purpose of software development is to implement the software? No, it's got to be used for years, right? And so that's why I'm trying to think in those 2 ways so I can look at how that fits together. Now, if we were going to look at just implementing the BI system, there's a lot of information here, but I'm going to simplify it for you. Okay? This side is all the BI projects. This is all kind of traditional project implementation. And you, Jim, you stop me anytime you want, okay? Jim helped me a lot with these slides. On this side, let's talk about what you normally see. This is kind of what the waterfall looks like. Okay, so that's actually kind of developing a software solution. Okay, so over here, it's been around for a long time, 50 years. Specific development life cycles, there's all kinds of life cycles. We're looking more at the systems engineering part about this than we are the software systems engineer. I'm a general systems engineer, so I always have to say software systems engineer. So we're looking at those steps, and that's kind of waterfall. Well, that's concept, planning, implementation, and closure. Okay, if we're looking at the project side of it. So all of this can be divided down to those 4 phases. On this side, it's different. We're looking at data is entered into a BI system. And I was thinking about this just now while I'm up here, and I was thinking you could actually go through that to get a system ready to go through this. Does that sound reasonable, Jim?
To a good degree, yeah.
Okay.
Usually your BI, oh, I know you won't bring that thing. Usually in starting with a BI project, and those that have worked in BI understand, and what we've just talked about from a business analyst standpoint, what is your purpose of doing it? If you don't identify your purpose, in other words, where am I going, what am I trying to accomplish, you can't get there. The number one thing with a BI project and becomes the forefront is the business analyst. Doing the work up front to identify what you're trying to accomplish and what you need to provide as a business decisions, and the business decisions that the company or the organization is having to make. And what's in the forefront, or the forefront of that, is the drivers that start you on your path into business intelligence. That's your first step. Then you start looking at, from there, identifying what data do I have to support that. That's where you start coming into your ETL process, where does this data exist? And it may exist on more than one application system. At Freddie Mac, I think we had 3 or 4 different types of mortgage systems that were in function, and we're trying to pull out data from 3 different systems to pull it together to identify, our term now we like to use is affordable housing, and making what the purpose was. And as a business, Freddie Mac was to provide affordable housing, and that was their focus. But they had 3 or 4 different mortgage systems that were being used to do that. So you're pulling from all those. Normally that was pulled into, and it's covered in some of these areas that you read about, an ODS, operational data store, and it, as it says in some of the books, you get so many different types of definitions for that. But it was a common area, and then from there you pull it back into a common data warehouse, and that's nothing more than a type of I don't want to get, it's not dimensional yet because we didn't get dimensions until we hit data marks. It's more of a normalized third normalized database of your data, so you can take it and make it much more easy. Then you start with this part here. Data is entered into a BI system through extract, transform, load, and ETL process. And then your next step after that, and there's two parts to that. And if you've dealt with this, your application system, you've got to get the data exist as it is now. First step. That's your snapshot. Bam, get it out, start it. That's your basis. But what about tomorrow? And what about the next day? What about next week? You've got to have a plan in this with your ETL. You have to have a point in time to do your snapshot and bring the data in of everything that you're going to bring in at that point in time. The next step that you're going to have ready to go as soon as you do that, and this is all part of the planning process, the next step is, how am I going to keep it refreshed and up to date? So in your ETL process, you're winding up with, you've actually got two things that you've got to do. First, get what's there. The second is to keep it refreshed. And each of these will follow, and when you're doing the ETL process, it's very similar to what you see on the transaction process side to a degree. And you're still going through the feasibility. You can do a feasibility study. I know we've done that with a BI project. Your requirements analysis, then the logical design, physical design, there's the coding, the test, and deployment. All of this is part of your ETL. And then, as you were mentioning a while ago, the first part, you had the development of the BI system or getting the data there. The first part, and dependent upon what you're going to do on the back side, once you create your data mart or your data warehouse, is how you're going to present this back. And that's the use part you were talking about. It's how is it going to be presented back. And normally there are tools out there. I mean, there's BO, business objects, there's MicroStrategy, Hyperion, and now what is it? It's, let's see, Hyperion is what, Oracle, or different ones that bought those out, SAS and different ones. SAS you should be familiar with there. So you've got these processes, then you start getting into, and part of the BI development lifecycle stages, you're identifying your key business drivers. All of this is where your business analyst is really coming into a key portion of doing that.
Great. And just go with Jim, what Jim said, it looks like to me, just looking at it from here, there's needs. That sounds like requirements. There's requirements over here. There's this kind of relates to this phase. Design, development, testing, and deployment. So it's kind of related. It's a little bit different. But what you're trying to do is make sure the data is in there in a way that you can retrieve it and analyze it. Okay, now these are the deliverables and components of BI. Now we're going to go through this. This is something people were interested in, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. Business requirements definition, and I'm going to read this. Gathering the business indicators that aspects, purpose, and needs. Identify the key primary indicators driving the business versus traditional approach of data-driven requirements. You know, that's a job for the BA, as you're saying, right? One thing, the word indicator, there's actually 7, I don't want to confuse it, but when you talk about performance measures is really what you're talking about, indicators. Performance measures, steps. There's actually 7 steps to designing performance measures. And the first step is just know the rules. And the second step is know the goals of the company. And the third step is know the criteria that relate to the goals. And the next step is know the indicators related to the criteria. So your goal may be to improve quality. Well, your indicator, your criteria is the quality, and your indicator is, well, it has to have shinier paint. You know, it has to, the wheels can't fall off. The wheels have to last a certain amount. There's certain indicators